The Centaurs of Greek mythology are amongst the most famous composite creatures of antiquity. The head, arms, and torso of a centaur were human, and joined at the waist to the body and legs of a horse. They were half man and half horse beings, representing an intermediate stage between human civilization and nature. The Centaurs were usually said to have been born of Ixion and Nephili. Ixion was king of the Lapiths, the most ancient tribe of Thessaly in Greece. By killing his father-in-law, Ixion was reckoned the first man guilty of kinslaying in Greek mythology. This act alone would warrant Ixion a terrible punishment, but Zeus took pity on Ixion, and brought him to Olympus, and introduced him at the table of the gods. However, instead of returning the kindness, Ixion proved a little more than ungrateful. He grew lustful for Hera, Zeus's wife. Ixion had not crossed any lines yet, but Zeus would not wait for him to do so. Zeus, suspicious of Ixion, created a cloud in the shape of Hera, which became known as Nephili. Ixion began to make love to Hera's double, which so enraged Zeus, that he drove Ixion from Mount Olympus, struck him with a thunderbolt. Nephili's child by this union was Centaurus, a deformed child who hunched over, and found no peace amongst other humans, and so removed to the mountain of Pelion. There, he roamed, lived, and mated with the Magnesian mares who resided there. This resulted in the birth of the Centaur race. The birth of centaurs was often seen as a symbol of the dangers of hubris, and the consequences of overstepping one's bounds. Centaurs are thought of in many Greek myths as being as wild as untamed horses. One of the most infamous stories involving centaurs is the Centauromachy, the battle between centaurs and the Lapiths. According to this story, Pirithous, the king of the Lapiths, invited the centaurs to his marriage with Hippodamia. The battle was caused by the centaurs' attempt to abduct the bride and the rest of the Lapith women. The Lapiths could not sit in front of this violent outbreak, and within moments were drawing their swords, spears, and fighting with everything they had. The legendary hero Theseus, who also happened to be invited to the wedding, played a major part in the battle, helping the Lapiths win, and successfully repulse the centaurs. Many scholars believe that the contests between the centaurs and the Lapiths typify the struggle between civilization and barbarism. The Shirt of Nessus is another story that depicts the centaur's brutality and lust. Nessus was a centaur ferryman, and one day, he had to carry Deianira, the wife of Heracles, across the river. The sight of the beautiful woman inflamed him with passion, and he attempted to violate her. Heracles saw this from across the river, and shot a hydra-poisoned arrow into Nessus's breast. As he lay dying, as a final act of malice, Nessus told Deianira that his blood would ensure that Heracles would be true to her forever, knowing the blood to be infected with the hydra's poison. Deianira foolishly believed him, and collected some of the centaur's blood. Years later, Heracles fell in love with Iole, the daughter of King Eurytus. And Deianira, afraid that Heracles might abandon her, dipped a shirt into the centaur's blood, and gave it to him. When Heracles put it on, his flesh started burning, the hydra's venom began to cook him alive, and to escape this unbearable pain, he built a funeral pyre, and threw himself on it. Nessus' stoop worked, and eventually resulted in the hero's death. Almost all centaurs were notorious for being wild and lusty. Chiron, by contrast, was intelligent, civilized, and kind. Because he was not related directly to the other centaurs, due to his parentage. While all of the centaurs descended from Ixion and Nephili, Chiron was the son of the titan Cronus, and the sea nymph, Philyra. Unfortunately, Chiron was a child of rape. Cronus, also the father of Zeus, transformed himself into a stallion, to hide from his wife, Rhea. Then he came upon the sea nymph Philyra, after whom he lusted, and mounted her. In due course, Philyra gave birth, with great pain, to a child named Chiron, with the upper body of a man, and the lower body of a horse. Soon after giving birth to Chiron, Philyra abandoned her child, out of shame and disgust. As a centaur, Chiron was not fully accepted by the other gods, who saw his animalistic nature as a source of barbarism and unpredictability. Chiron, effectively orphaned, was later found by the god Apollo, who took him under his wing and taught him the art of music, lyre, archery, medicine, and prophecy. Apollo's twin sister, Artemis, trained him in archery and hunting. Chiron's uniquely peaceful character, kindness, and intelligence are attributed to Apollo and Artemis. Despite his unusual appearance and troubled childhood, Chiron was able to rise above his circumstances and become one of the most respected and beloved figures of ancient Greek mythology. A great healer, astrologer, and respected oracle, Chiron was said to be the first among centaurs, and highly revered as a teacher and tutor. Among his pupils were many heroes. The god of medicine Asclepius, Achilles, Jason, and Aristeus. Chiron taught them the skills they needed to survive in a world filled with danger and uncertainty. Chiron's nobility is further reflected in the story of his death. Do you remember Heracles, who used a poisoned arrow to kill Nessus, and also died from the Hydra's poison? During his fourth labor to capture the Erymanthian boar, Heracles was forced to shoot many arrows to drive back wild centaurs, attracted by the sacred wine. And in the chaos, he accidentally shot Chiron with a Hydra-poisoned arrow. As an immortal, Chiron could not die. Despite his immense knowledge of healing and medicine, Chiron was unable to find a cure for his own suffering. His agony was so extreme that he wished to die. Chiron offered to give up his immortality if it meant being released from his pain. The gods took pity on Chiron and offered him a solution. They allowed him to trade his immortality with the mortal Prometheus, who had been chained to a rock and left to die for his transgressions. Chiron accepted the trade, and he was finally released from his suffering. For this reason, his half-brother Zeus took pity on him, and thus placed him among the stars in the sky, to be honored. The Greeks identified him as the constellation Centaurus. Chiron and Prometheus were both selfless and willing to sacrifice for the greater good. Their actions demonstrate the importance of selflessness and sacrifice in Greek mythology, and their story continues to inspire people to this day. The portrayal of centaurs has varied across different periods of history and different cultures. In ancient Greek mythology, centaurs were seen as a metaphor for the struggle between civilized behavior and animalistic instincts. The brutality, violence, and lust associated with centaurs can be seen as a reflection of the darker aspects of human nature. These myths serve as cautionary tales, warning us of the dangers of giving into our baser instincts and impulses. The representation of centaurs in culture has evolved over time, from being associated with wild and violent behavior, to being seen as more complex and nuanced creatures. During medieval times, centaurs were often depicted in a Christian context. They were a favorite subject of bestiary books, representing both the strength and wisdom of the Church, and also the savage nature of the heretics. In more recent times, centaurs have continued to appear in art and literature. For example, in C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia, centaurs are portrayed as heroic and honorable beings, who embody the virtues of strength, wisdom, and loyalty.
If you will lead us, then my sons and I offer you our swords.
They are often depicted as skilled archers, and are known for their bravery. In J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series, Centaurs are a noble race that greatly values astrology and divination, living in the Forbidden Forest, near Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. They do not like to associate with humans, and think that it is beneath them to do a wizard's bidding. They also do not like being underestimated, or thought of as creatures.
I'm sorry, Professor. I must not tell lies.
What are you doing? I am Senior Under Secretary to Lawrence Jane Umbridge. Let me go!
Firenze was a courageous centaur, who was not as traditional or proud as most of his kind. He was friendly with Hagrid, and seemed to get on quite well with Harry Potter. Even though he was expelled from the herd, for working for Professor Dumbledore, and becoming a teacher at Hogwarts, Firenze was willing to stand up for what he believed in. It is possible that Firenze is based on the legend of Chiron, the centaur who left his wild and lusty brethren, to instead tutor heroes.
Good luck.
Beyond literature, centaurs have also appeared in popular culture, in a variety of forms, from film and television, to video games and comics. In the world of gaming, centaurs often appear as powerful and agile characters, while in film and television, they are often depicted as fierce warriors, or mythical creatures. Their unique appearance, and combination of human and animal traits, make them a fascinating subject for artists and writers. Regardless of the medium, the representation of centaurs in culture continues to evolve and adapt to the changing times. Thank you for watching. More mythical horses will be introduced in subsequent videos. Please leave a message, and let me know if you have any mythical horses that you are interested in.